Ay, give me the chip, I need the championship. Wait, we got a dream, next to the team, yeah, we can handle it. Wait, soon as I go and I step in arenas, they call me the champ. They know what it is, know what I do, know who I am.
Yep. Welcome in, welcome back. We're the Real Selection Committee. I'm Mike, this is Greg, and we're here talking about college football.
That's right.
What teams are going to make it into the playoffs, but we're going to dive into Ohio State's schedule and who they play. In the middle of the season, they got that battle against Penn State.
Yeah.
So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about Penn State. We're going to talk about their starters, their recruits a little bit, kind of dive in on Penn State a little bit more. Then we'll go into the matchup mode with Ohio State versus Penn State, where, you know, this is quite a big matchup between these two teams here. All right, so let's dive into Penn State, right? Penn State is returning a lot of players. This team is kind of, you know, in good shape to make a good run. You know,
Yes,
last year they made it into the semifinals. They were one of the 4 teams to make it in there. They brought back a lot of the players from that team. So I think they got a lot of hardware on their mind.
Oh, yeah.
And is James Franklin going to get him over that hump and get him into, you know?
One thing I want to say right now, James Franklin is a victim of the same BS that Ryan Day was a victim of. James Franklin's a good coach. I don't care what anybody says. This guy, what was Penn State when James Franklin took them over? They were coming out of that death sentence.
Yeah.
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah. He turned this team around fast.
He's got them competitive. He's got them in the top 3 of the Big Ten. He has struggled with Ohio State and Michigan.
Sure.
And we understand that, you know, you got to beat those teams, but they're much like Ryan Day. James Franklin doesn't lose the games to the crummy teams. He only loses to the best of the best. So, Penn State fans, get off your coach's rear end because the guy is good. Who are you going to get to replace him?
Right. Right.
Come on.
And you hit the nail on the head. He is kind of like Ryan Day.
Yes.
A lot of people love him, but when you don't win those big games, the Bluebirds and everybody out there is calling for you. And they, you know, I think James Franklin is a great head coach. I think the players love him.
Right. Well, it's the bubblegum chewers that have the problem. The guy, people that never did nothing but eat potato chips, they have a problem with the coach. You never played a game in your life.
They're not winning.
He's a quality football coach, gang. You have a quality team this year, and if it weren't at the expense of our Buckeyes, I would want Penn State to win just for that guy. I'm going to say it. I like James Franklin.
Right. So, now let's dive into Penn State starters here. You got them all figured out in a ranking to them, so let's hear what you have.
Well, quarterback, as we know, is Drew Aller.
Yes.
Okay. Had a really good year last year, I think. I think he really stepped forward. He's a 2-year starter, 2024-23. Was a 2-time Big Ten honorable mention. So that's pretty doggone good work.
Yes.
Running back there, stellar at.
Right.
They've got the 2-headed monster.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I believe the starter is Nicholas Singleton.
Yes. Yeah.
So the one they have listed as a starter, he's a 2-year starter, 2024-23, 13 Big Ten 2023, honorable mention Big Ten 2024. Outstanding player, also started 8 games in 2022. So there you are.
Yeah, and the other guy filters in Katron Allen.
Yes,
who's
he's just as good.
Yes,
actually ranked a bit higher. But I'll get to him in the reserves.
Yeah.
Wide receiver X is a transfer from USC, a senior transfer. Was a starter in 2024 for USC. Wide receiver Z is another transfer. The only 2 transfers in the starting 4. From Troy. Now, this guy was a 2-year starter with Troy.
Yeah.
Possible all SBC, Sun Belt Conference. Had over 1,000 yards receiving in 2024. Yeah. I don't care who you're playing for. 1,000 yards is outstanding in 12 games. Wide receiver slot is a redshirt freshman. Obviously, he's making his first turn as a starter. So, receiving core is not bad.
Right.
So, let's see here. Left tackle. Making his first turn, had 6 starts in 2023, 2022 combined, so he's got a little bit of experience, but appears to be going to make his first turn as a starter. Left guard's a 2-year starter in 2024, 2023. Second team Big Ten 24, honorable mention in 23, so very solid. The center is a starter from 2024 who was honorable mention in the Big Ten in 2024. Right guard making his first turn. He's a sophomore making his first turn as a starter according to this paperwork. Right tackle is a redshirt senior who will also be making his first turn as a yearly starter. Started 6 games in 2024. So got a little experience. Tight end, 4 starts in 2024, making his first turn as a starter at tight end. However, in the backup roles on the second line, for some reason, all those positions have a guy sitting on the second line that graded better than them guys making their first turn. I don't know if it's because maybe they were going to go into the draft because this was done prior to the spring game and the transfer portal. Maybe they were talking about the transfer portal. I don't know. But they have better players on the second line than some of these guys making their first turn. So this team is better than it appears on the starting line to me. Hopefully that didn't confuse anybody. They got the depth. So maybe some of the guys I listed as starters are going to be depth providers, but this team is solid on the offense.
Yeah.
The defense. Defensive end. Starter in 2024, honorable mention, Big Ten 2023. So he was a rotator role in 23, but somehow made honorable mention in the Big Ten. How does that work? Left defensive tackle, 2-year starter, 2024, 2023. 2-time honorable mention in the Big Ten. Pretty doggone good. Right defensive tackle, well, he's going to be making his first turn. So, new starter there. Right defensive end, same difference. Had a season-ending injury before 2024, was slated to be the starter there, but that put that in the kibosh. Weak side linebacker, starter in 2024, Big Ten honorable mention 2024. Solid player. Middle linebacker, 5 starts in 2024, solid stats over the 3 years he's played, but was not a starter in any of them. Left cornerback, making his first turn as a starter. Same thing with the strong safety, both young players. Free safety was a starter in 2024, was honorable mention in the Big Ten. Very solid there. Right cornerback, starter in 2024, was 3rd team Big Ten in 2024. Very solid. Seeing a pattern here. A lot of guys with decorations, right?
Yeah, they got a lot.
Nickelback was a starter in 2024. Solid team, graded a 54. Not quite starters throughout the defense, but 54 is not a bad grade. That's a grade that, you get past the first few games, they'll grow into the season. So I think Penn State is a real threat in the Big Ten and a real threat for the national title.
Yeah.
If they get that middle block of beating Ohio State.
Right. That's the thing that get over the hump and beat that big game or win that big game, So, yeah, that's good. They do have a good quarterback, 2 solid running backs. Like you said, it's a 2-headed monster at the running back position. We're going to find out because they were kind of weak at the receiver. They do got 3 transfers that are coming in that are going to get some playing time. The receivers are, if they play a little bit better than last year, it's going to be good news for Penn State. On a defensive side, Penn State's got some returning starters there. A lot of guys with accolades there. So Penn State is going to be a threat as far as playing Ohio State. So let's talk about the recruiting class.
Well, before we do that, I want to say this. I told you about reserves, right? Well, they have a guard who was honorable mention Big Ten in 2023, and one of the guards that's starting is making his first turn. This guy's already been honorable mention. How's that happen? Then you got another guy who was a starter in 2024 at offensive tackle. Big Ten honorable mention in 2024. So you throw them 2 in the starting lineup, and that goes from 58 to probably 60. The running back, as I said, we had Nick Singleton.
He's the projected starter.
Nick Singleton and Katron Allen.
Yes.
Who's basically 1B.
They both going to play.
Yeah, this guy has been 2-time Big Ten honorable mention and a 2nd-team Big Ten. And he's the second line. Just ridiculous. Defensive tackle, they had a guy who was going to be making a first turn. They got a guy who's a 2-year starter for Old Dominion sitting on the bench. Granted, it's Old Dominion, but this guy has starting experience. don't undervalue that. So a lot of good. Now the recruiting info. What we have there, the number 5 class in the Big Ten, number 15 overall, so a solid recruiting class, which Big Ten is starting to grow, and the Penn State recruiting classes are getting better and better and better. 19 4-star recruits, 8 3-star recruits. Now what I have listed is they have 2 4-star tight ends, 3 4-star cornerbacks, so 3 linebackers that were 4-star, 1 defensive lineman, 1 wide receiver, 1 offensive tackle, 1 interior offensive lineman, and 1 edge. Lots of depth on this team. This team is set up to make a run. The only thing holding Penn State back, in my opinion, is their mental block at beating Ohio State. And they kind of have one against Michigan as well. But
yeah, like you mentioned on the recruiting aspect, the only 1 5-star that they got is this Malachi Goodman, who may get some playing time, but not, because Penn State does have most of their returning starters in there. So they're going to do fine. And plus, here's a name that you might know, LeVar Arrington.
Sure, certainly do.
He's a kid that's coming in recruiting. He's a 4-star recruit. If he's anything like his dad, he's going to be a heck of a ball player.
Yeah, absolutely.
They definitely have a decent recruiting class, like you said. They're around 19th as far as recruiting. Pretty decent. They got a lot of transfers coming in. They're getting their receivers from the transfer area. They're getting a kid from Syracuse. Trebor Pina is one. Devontae Ross is another guy. He was the guy you're talking about, come from Tulane or Troy. Coming from Troy. And they also have Kayron Hudson coming from USC. So a lot of their receiver plays coming from transfers.
If you plug the kid from Syracuse in for the kid that's making his first turn, there's more depth.
Yeah.
Not to throw shade on the new kid, because he's young. He's a redshirt freshman or something. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. All right, so let's dive into this matchup. They play Ohio State. I think it's like week 8. It is at Ohio State here. And can James Franklin get over the hump? He's 1-10 against Ohio State. Not very good.
No.
He has not fared very well here in this game. And this is one of those games that if they lose and don't do very well
Boo Birds
into the playoffs, he might be struggling to hold on to that job. So, let's dive into this Ohio State matchup here. So let's cover, obviously, the biggest burning question is the QB position. Who's going to have the edge in this matchup here at the QB position?
As it stands right now, Drew Aller. Penn State has the advantage at quarterback. No disgrace in saying that, because Drew Aller, like I say, 2-time Big Ten honorable mention. You cannot take a 5-star recruit who hadn't played and make him better than that. Sorry.
Right.
Drew Aller.
Yep. I will give the edge to Drew Aller. Only Ohio State has not really committed to saying. I know that's the rumor that's going around, that he's getting the edge. That and Lincoln Keenholz has had a great, outstanding spring. Athletic kid,
talented player.
I guess if you have a better backup or a good backup, it gives you a little bit of a favor, because if something happens to Aller, and I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying, Penn State has a better advantage there. But I'm not throwing much shade. I think Ohio State, Julian Sayin, is going to be an outstanding quarterback. And plus, how could you not be with that sports car you got as far as those receivers? So, edge, Penn State. Let's get into the running back room. This is probably an easy one here, too.
Yeah, not even close. We did talk well about Ohio State. We think the running back class for Ohio State is good. Not even close to this one. And if I ain't mistaken, they've got a third running back that's probably on the same line as people. So that's not even close. Penn State has a running back without a question.
Yeah. You're right. I'm going to give the edge to Penn State. But Ohio State, let's not look too far. I think James Peoples, the choice, is going to be an outstanding running back who's going to have a good season.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
behind Peoples, they got a transfer, C.J. Donaldson, who's going to have a good year. Plus, they got one of my favorite names. There's a recruiting kid, Bo Jackson. If he plays anything like Bo Jackson, I'm excited because he's going to be outstanding.
He's got a name to live up to.
Yeah, he's got a big name.
Yeah.
Big name to live up to. All right, so obviously here's the next question. Let's go with the receiver position. It's probably not even a
not close.
Not
Ohio
close.
State blows them away on wide receiver and tight end, so we're back to even.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, and that's the other thing. Ohio State has Max Clare as a tight end transfer, who's probably one of the best tight ends in college football. Right. So like you said, the receiver and tight end goes back to Ohio State. We're even so far. Now, offensive line is going to be an interesting question.
Yeah, well, I think that's a toss-up.
That's
I
a
really
good.
do. I think it's almost, you're splitting whiskers. I'm going with a toss-up in the offensive line because, as I said, I believe some of those guys that were listed on Penn State's reserve line are going to be starters. And that jumps their grade.
Mm-hmm.
So I think both offensive lines have quality players, have some depth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too hard to say one's better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is a toss-up, which to me makes these offenses a toss-up.
Yeah.
It may favor Penn State's running game, for sure, but it favors our passing game. So you're basically drawing straws.
Yeah. So as far as my opinion, I like the toss-up. It is pretty evenly matched. I like Ohio State because I think that they do have returning starters that got quality playing time. Even the guys they replaced that they lost to the NFL draft. They got a transfer from Rice, that Ethan Onwenu,
Right.
who could have went into the draft. He was graded as a third day kind of guy, or third round draft pick. So this guy's coming back to go to Ohio State. He's going to solidify that left tackle is where he's going to play. They got Luke Montgomery, who's got quality time at Ohio State. Carson Heinzman, who's the center, who's a good player. So Ohio State, I think, is going to be pretty good at the offensive line.
I agree.
I think it is.
That's why I said it's toss-up.
Yeah, it's an edge. And Penn State has returning starters, all honored guys on that side of the field. So offense work, it's close. It's close, very close.
This Penn State team is loaded to do the job this year, I think.
Mm-hmm. Let's go with the defensive side. Let's just go with a collective defense.
Yeah. Kind of got to give the defensive line edge to Penn State because they have so many guys that were decorated. And, that's not to throw shade on Ohio State because both of us are very excited for what Ohio State has, both in guys who picked up valuable time last year playing and with the addition of Bo Atkinson from North Carolina coming in. But I got to give a slight edge to Penn State's defensive line. I think linebackers, I think we have the edge. Ohio State has the edge in the linebacker category.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Ohio State has the edge in the defensive backfield.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
But they're close.
They're close.
Penn State's right there with us. I mean, it's not head and shoulders like it has been. It's not 1 in 10 head and shoulders. It's more like we'll be struggling. Yeah, so Penn State's going to give us all we want.
Yeah, I'll agree with, I give a slight, and I mean a slight edge to Ohio State over Penn State. The defensive line is the suspect question here as far as Ohio State because they lost their 2 stars, Sawyer and Tumolau.
Right.
But the guys that they got to bring in, they got Atkinson, you mentioned, from North Carolina, who looks like a superstar in the making. They got Kenyatta Jackson, who was a 5-star kid coming in.
Played last year.
Both edge guys, I think, are fine. The interior on the D-line is kind of questionable. Caden McDonald and Edric Houston are 2 guys that are going to have to step up and jam up that middle. Linebacker, like you said, I think they're going to do well. Sonny Styles. I'm really excited about this recruit coming in, Riley Pettijohn from Texas, who's going to be an outstanding linebacker. And then we're going to get into the back end. The defensive backs got a good experience. Davidson Egbinosa, if he'd quit tugging on the shirts, he'd be a great DB. Yeah. I mean, because he's always in play as far as the ball, but for some reason he likes tugging on the guy's shirts. Now, on the other side, Jermaine Matthews got a lot of quality time and looked outstanding down the stretch for Ohio State. He's going to be a great DB. And as far as their recruiting, they got that Devin Sanchez, who is one of the best DBs coming in. So he might get in on a nickel package or something like that. Plus, they got the number one defensive player, Caleb Downs. I think that's what gives Ohio State the edge, because he's going to be all over the field. And we've seen these two teams battle the last few years, and they got the best of Drew Aller. Mm-hmm. So I think the defense is going to be ready for this game here. Mm-hmm. So now the burning question here is, who's going to win this game, and your prediction?
I've gone back and forth with this one because Penn State is definitely good enough to beat Ohio State this year. They almost beat us last year. And to me, we didn't really think they were that great last year. I think Ohio State clips them, but this is definitely a game we could lose. Mm-hmm. You know, I think Ohio State wins this game 31-20. And I think we have a play late in the game. I think it's a close game, and then late in the game we'll make a play and we'll make it look worse than it is. But I think it's a tough game. I think we win 31-20.
For me, this is a nail biter, and this is the pivotal game for me as far as how Ohio State plays this season. The Texas game earlier in the season, if they dump that one, that's fine. That don't hurt them. They still make it playoffs. If you lose Penn State and you got Michigan down the road and you got some other tough games here, this is a pivotal game for Ohio State. I got them winning this game, but it's going to be a defensive battle like it always is with these two teams when they get together. I got a 24-21 Ohio State. Squeaks it out just because I like their offense. I think they're going to be able to move the ball, and I think the defense is going to cause Aller some fits just because they do have a lot of studs back there in the backside. If we can get some pressure on Aller, that makes the game kind of swing towards Ohio State. I'm excited about this game.
Sure. For
Ohio State's sake, I think this is a game they must. I don't want to label it as a must-win game, but I want to label it as a game that they need to win.
Depending on the Texas and the Illinois game.
Yeah.
I think we can beat Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois is going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because of when they play.
Mm-hmm. They got a tough
and they're in Illinois.
Yeah.
But this game here, you know, Ohio State just has a knack at beating Penn State. And you can't deny that mental block.
Right.
And I don't know what it is, because the players change every 4 years or more or less. But they're just, for whatever reason, it's like manufactured. Lose to Ohio State, you know, and kind of like we've been doing in Michigan lately.
Right.
There's just some kind of a mental block there. And I don't think it's a must win, but if you dump a game to Texas or Illinois, you better win this one.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because if you don't win this one, especially if you dump the game to Illinois, now you're in the back seat. You're getting into you're getting into the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
And then you still have that game with Michigan at the end of the year, which hasn't been going our way.
No. Yeah, no. I don't want to label it as a must-win, but this is a pretty close to a must-win.
It's an important game, but I think it's a must-win for Penn State.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Simply because, like you say, if they fall to 1-11,
Franklin's sake,
you know, if they go 11-1, but they lose to Ohio State, there's going to be idiots that root for Penn State wanting him gone. And I say to them, keep your mouth shut. Don't talk.
Right.
Don't show your stupidity any more than you already have, because that guy is a great coach.
Yeah, I like Franklin too.
Yeah.
But hey, that's going to do it. I enjoyed this one. It was fun talking about Penn State and Ohio State matchup here. Like and subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think the score is going to be or who's going to win. Is this a must-win game for Ohio State? Because I think it's pretty close.
Yeah.
I'm just excited for the season to get here. It's really close, right around the corner.
Can't wait.
It's going to be fun. Hey, watch us next week. We'll dive into some more Ohio State schedule and everything else. Talk to you later.
Peace.